The ice wind howled across the frozen surface of Hoth Prime as Captain Lee Nari checked her weapon one final time. The cold bit through her protective suit, but she had trained in worse conditions back on Earth. The mountains of Korea in winter had prepared her for this moment. Team Alpha, report status, she spoke into her comm device. Kang Dae here. Perimeter secured on the north side, came the reply from her longtime friend and fellow soldier. Park Soon checking in. South approach is clear. No enemy movement detected, reported her other teammate. Nari nodded with satisfaction. Her human team was ready. They had been planning this mission for 3 months. The Galactic Coalition needed to secure the resource depot hidden deep inside this frozen wasteland. The depot contained rare minerals that could power their ships for years, but they were not alone on this mission. The Coalition had sent representatives from 3 different alien species to work alongside the humans. Commander Veltar led the reptilian warriors from the hegemony. His scales were dark green and his eyes were cold like the planet around them. Captain Rix commanded the insect-like soldiers from the hive worlds. Their clicking sounds filled the comm channels as they communicated. Finally, there was Major Gorth from the Rock People, whose stone-like skin made him nearly immune to the cold. Nari had worked with alien allies before, but something felt different this time. The way they looked at her team, the way they spoke, in their own languages when they thought the humans could not hear. She pushed the feeling aside. This was too important a mission to let paranoia take control. All teams moved to Phase 2. Target building is 2 kilometers ahead, Nari commanded. The group moved across the ice field in formation. Nari led her human team while the alien commanders brought their soldiers from behind. The resource depot appeared like a metal mountain rising from the white landscape. It had been abandoned for 50 years, but the Coalition believed it still held valuable materials inside. The approach went smoothly. Too smoothly, Nari thought. Intelligence reports had suggested enemy forces might be guarding the depot. Instead, they found nothing but empty ice and howling wind. Something is wrong, Park Soon whispered over the private human channel. This feels like a trap. I know, Nari replied quietly. Stay alert. Keep your weapons ready. They reached the depot, entrance without incident. The massive metal doors were sealed shut, covered in ice that had built up over decades. Kang Dae set up the plasma-cutting equipment while Park Soon watched for threats. The alien team spread out in what looked like a defensive position. Cutting. Through now, Kang Dae reported. Should take about 10 minutes to get through this ice and metal. Nari used the time to study their alien allies. Commander Veltar stood with his reptilian soldiers, but they were not watching the horizon for enemies. They were watching the humans. Captain Rix and his insect warriors had positioned themselves behind the human team, rather than in a proper, defensive formation. Major Gorth and his rock people blocked the path back to their ships. The cold fear in Nari's stomach had nothing to do with the frozen planet. Almost through, Kang Dae announced. Good work. Once we are inside, we split into search teams as planned, Nari said over the main comm channel so all teams could hear. Actually, Captain Lee, Commander Veltar's voice cut through the wind. There has been a change of plans. Nari turned to face the reptilian commander. His soldiers had raised their weapons, not toward the depot or potential threats, but toward the human team. What is the meaning of this, Commander? Nari demanded, though she already suspected the answer. The meaning is simple, human. Your species has served its purpose. You have trained our soldiers, shared your military knowledge, and helped us understand your weaknesses. Now it is time for the galaxy to move forward without Earth's interference. Captain Rix's insect soldiers clicked and buzzed as they surrounded the humans. Major Gorth's rock people moved closer, their heavy footsteps crunching on the ice. You are making a mistake, Nari said, keeping her voice steady. Earth is a valuable ally to the Coalition. Earth is a threat that must be eliminated, Veltar replied. Your species is too dangerous, too unpredictable, too willing to fight when others would surrender. The galaxy will be more peaceful without humans in it. Kang Dae looked at Nari with questioning eyes. She gave him a slight nod. He understood. They all understood. This had always been the plan. Get the humans far from Earth, learn their secrets, then eliminate them before the real invasion began. Kill them, Commander Veltar ordered. The battle was short but fierce. 3 humans against 40 alien soldiers. Nari's team fought with the desperation of betrayed allies and the skill of Earth's finest warriors. They had trained together for years. They moved like parts of the same machine. Kang Day took down 6 reptilian soldiers before plasma fire caught him in the chest. He fell to the ice with a smile on his face, knowing he had made the enemy pay for their treachery. Park soon fought like a cornered tiger, using the depot walls for cover as she picked off insect warriors with precise shots. But there were too many. A rock soldier's massive fist caught her from behind, ending her fight. Nari was the last one standing. She had climbed onto the depot roof, using the high ground to her advantage. Her rifle was nearly empty, but she had made every shot count. Bodies lay scattered across the ice around the building. "Surrender, human," Veltar called out. "Your death does not have to be painful." "Come and take it," Nari shouted back, echoing the words of ancient Earth warriors. But even Earth's best soldier could not win against impossible odds. When her ammunition ran out, they came for her. She fought with her knife, then her fists, then finally with nothing but her will to survive. The avalanche charges they set were meant to cover their lies. They would report that the humans died heroically in an accident while securing the depot. No one would question the story. No one would know about the betrayal. As the ice and rock buried her broken body, Nari's last thought was of Earth. Her home planet had no idea what was coming. The invasion fleet was already being prepared. Humanity's greatest allies had become their deadliest enemies. The aliens left Hoth Prime satisfied with their work. The dangerous humans were finally eliminated. Earth would fall within the year, and the galaxy would thank them for removing such a violent and unpredictable species. They had no idea that some things are harder to kill than others. They had no idea that Earth's coldest killer was about to wake up very, very angry. 3 months passed on the frozen world of Hoth Prime. The alien coalition forces had long since departed, believing their mission complete. The resource depot stood empty and silent, buried under fresh snow that covered all traces of the battle that had taken place there. Deep beneath tons of ice and rock, something stirred. Nari opened her eyes to complete darkness. Her body felt strange, different somehow. The cold that should have killed her had instead become something else. Something that kept her alive when death seemed certain. She tried to move and felt the weight of ice pressing down on her from all sides. Panic tried to rise in her chest, but her training kicked in. Panic killed soldiers faster than enemy bullets. She forced herself to breathe slowly and think clearly. How was she alive? The last thing she remembered was the avalanche crashing down on her broken body. She should have died from her injuries. She should have frozen to death. Yet here she was, awake and somehow breathing in this frozen tomb. The experimental program. The memory came back to her slowly. Before the mission, she had volunteered for something called Project Winter Shield. The scientists had injected her with tiny machines called nanobots. They said it would help soldiers survive in extreme cold environments. She had not told anyone, not even Kang Day or Park Soon. Military secrets were meant to be kept secret. The nanobots must have worked better than anyone expected. When her body reached the edge of death, they had slowed everything down. Her heart, her breathing, her body temperature. Like bears sleeping through winter, she had survived by almost stopping completely. But now she was awake and she needed to get out. Nari began the slow work of digging. The ice above her had hardened over 3 months, but her body felt stronger than before. The nanobots were still working, changing her, helping her adapt to this frozen hell. It took her 6 hours to dig her way to the surface. When she finally broke through, the sight that greeted her made her heart sink. The depot was buried under snow. The landscape looked completely different. Worse, there was no sign of any ships or rescue teams. She was alone on a planet where The temperature could kill an unprotected human in minutes. Nari made her way back to where the battle had taken place. She found the bodies of Kang Dae and Park Soon, preserved perfectly in the ice. Her friends looked peaceful, but seeing them filled her with a cold rage that had nothing to do with the weather. She searched their bodies carefully, taking their equipment and supplies. In Kang Dae's pack, she found something that made her blood boil, a recording device that had captured the final moments of their mission. "This is Kang Dae. If anyone finds this, know that we were betrayed. The Coalition, species we trusted, planned this from the beginning. They're going to invade Earth. They used us to learn our military secrets, then eliminated us so we could not warn our home planet." Park Soon's voice came through clearly on the recording. "Captain Lee fought like 10 soldiers, but there were too many. If she survives somehow, tell her that Earth needs to know. The invasion fleet is being prepared. Humanity has maybe 1 year before they attack." The recording ended with the sound of the avalanche. Nari played it 3 more times, memorizing every word. Her friends had died trying to save Earth. Now that responsibility fell to her. But first she needed to survive. The wreckage of their dropship was half buried in ice, but the hull was intact. Nari spent the next week turning it into a shelter. The ship's power core was damaged but still functional enough to provide heat and light. She found emergency rations that would last her maybe a month if she was careful. Water was not a problem. She was surrounded by ice. Food would be harder, but the ship's database contained information about the planet. There were underground hot springs in this region. Where there was heat and water, there might be life. Nari began exploring the cave systems near her shelter. The nanobots in her system continued to change her. She could stay outside in the killing, cold for hours without protection. Her eyes adapted to see better in the darkness. Her body needed less food and water than before. She was becoming something new, something designed to survive in places where humans were never meant to live. 2 weeks after waking up, she found what she was looking for. Deep in a cave system, heated by geothermal vents, she discovered a small ecosystem. Strange plants grew near the warm water. Small creatures moved through the shallow pools. It was not much, but it was enough to keep her alive. Nari established her base in the caves. She brought supplies from the wrecked ship and set up equipment near the warm springs. The location was hidden, defensible, and had everything she needed to survive long term. During the quiet hours, she studied the ship's database. She learned everything she could about Coalition military tactics, ship designs, and communication protocols. If she was going to get off this planet and warn Earth, she needed to understand her enemies. The Coalition thought she was dead. That gave her an advantage, but only if she could find a way to use it. Ships must come to this planet sometimes. Patrol vessels, supply runs, research teams. All she needed was one ship. As the days passed, Nari felt the changes in her body becoming more pronounced. She could run across the ice for kilometers without getting tired. Her skin had become pale white, almost matching the snow around her. Her hair had turned silver like frost. The nanobots were turning her into something that could thrive in this frozen wasteland. She was becoming Earth's coldest killer, forged in betrayal and shaped by ice. 3 months after her resurrection, Nari picked up a signal on the ship's damaged communications array. A Coalition patrol vessel was approaching the system. It would arrive in 2 days. She began preparing for her first hunt. The aliens had made one critical mistake when they betrayed her team. They thought killing humans would make them safe. They were about to learn that some humans are much harder to kill than others, and when they survive, they come back angry. 6 months after the betrayal, strange reports began reaching Coalition command. Ships patrolling the outer rim were going missing. Not destroyed in battle, but simply vanishing without sending distress signals. When search teams found the vessels, they discovered something that made seasoned military officers nervous. The ships were completely stripped, weapons gone, supplies missing, communication equipment removed with surgical precision. Most disturbing of all, the crews had disappeared without a trace. Admiral Orcs of the reptilian hegemony studied the reports in his command center. 12 ships lost in the past 3 months, all in the same sector of space that included the frozen world of Hoth Prime. "What do we know about these attacks?" he asked his intelligence officer. "Very little, sir. No survivors. No witnesses. Whoever is doing this knows our patrol routes and ship designs perfectly. They strike fast and disappear like ghosts." "Pirates?" "Unlikely. Pirates would take valuable cargo and leave the ships. These attackers seem interested only in weapons and military equipment. They are building something or preparing for something." Admiral Corks's scales darkened with worry. The Coalition was preparing for the invasion of Earth. They could not afford mysterious threats disrupting their plans. "Send Kim Woo to investigate. If anyone can solve this mystery, it is him." Colonel Kim Woo had once been Lee Nari's mentor and trainer back on Earth. When the Coalition recruited human military advisors, he was among the first to join. His knowledge of human tactics and psychology made him valuable to Coalition intelligence. But lately, he had been having doubts about the path he had chosen. Kim Woo arrived at Hoth Prime aboard a heavy cruiser with a full security escort. The planet looked peaceful from orbit, covered in white ice and showing no signs of activity. But his instruments detected metal debris scattered across the surface near an abandoned resource depot. "Take us down for a closer look," he ordered. The landing site revealed the remains of what had clearly been a battle. Blast marks on the depot walls. Scattered equipment half buried in snow. Most telling of all, he found human DNA traces mixed with alien blood on the frozen ground. Kim Woo knew immediately what had happened here. This was where Lee Nari and her team had died. The official reports called it an accident, but the evidence told a different story. Someone had fought hard before being overwhelmed. As his team explored the crash site, Kim Woo made a discovery that chilled him more than the planet's frozen air. Hidden under debris, he found a small recording device. When he played it back privately, he heard the voices of Kang Dae and Park Soon describing their betrayal. His worst fears were confirmed. The Coalition had murdered their human allies to cover their tracks before the invasion. Kim Woo felt sick, but he also felt something else. If the humans had been betrayed here, then maybe one of them had survived. That night, as his team made camp near their ship, Kim Woo walked alone to the site where Lee Nari had supposedly died. The avalanche zone had been swept clean by months of wind and snow, but something caught his eye. Scratches in the ice that looked like they had been made. From below, someone had dug their way out. "Hello, old student," he whispered to the empty air. "I know you are out there." He was right. Nari watched him from a cave entrance 2 kilometers away, using equipment she had taken from Coalition ships. She had been tracking his vessel since it entered the system. Seeing her old mentor filled her with conflicting emotions. Kim Woo had taught her everything about warfare and survival. He had been like a father to her during training. But he wore Coalition colors now. Was he part of the betrayal, or could she trust him? She decided to test him. The next morning, Kim Woo's team found a message carved into the ice near their ship. The words were in Korean, written in a code that only Earth military personnel would understand. "Earth remembers its dead. The cold never forgets." Kim Woo read the message and felt his heart racing. Only one person could have written those words. Lee Nari was alive, and she was hunting Coalition forces. That explained the missing ships and vanished crews. His former student had become something dangerous in the months since her apparent death. She was systematically attacking Coalition vessels, taking what she needed and eliminating anyone who might report her survival. Kim Woo made a decision that would change everything. Instead of reporting Nari's survival to Coalition Command, he decided to make contact. That evening, he walked alone to the message site and left his own reply. "Teacher seeks student. Much to discuss. Sunset tomorrow, depot roof. Come alone." The next evening, Kim Woo waited on the frozen roof of the resource depot as the alien sun set behind the mountains. The cold was brutal, but he had dressed for it. As darkness fell, he began to think she would not come. Then she appeared like a ghost from the shadows. Kim Woo barely recognized the woman who had once been Earth's finest soldier. Her hair was silver white, her skin pale as snow. Her eyes reflected light like a predator's. The nanobots had changed her into something adapted for this frozen hell. "Teacher," she said in Korean, keeping her distance. "Student," he replied in the same language. "I thought you were dead." "I was. Now I am something else." They talked for an hour in the killing cold that would have frozen most beings solid. Wu told her about the planned invasion of Earth. The coalition forces were almost ready to move. Humanity had perhaps 3 months before the attack began. Nari told him about her survival and transformation, about the ships she had been hunting and the supplies she had been gathering. She was preparing for something big, but she would not tell him what. "I can help you," Wu offered. "I have access to coalition intelligence, ship movements, patrol, schedules, invasion plans. Why would you help me? You chose them over your own species." Wu looked out at the frozen landscape where his people had been murdered by their supposed allies. "I made a mistake. I thought the coalition could be trusted. I was wrong." Nari studied her old mentor for a long moment. Finally, she nodded. "Then help me send a message the galaxy will never forget. Help me show them what happens when you betray Earth's children." As they planned in the frozen darkness, neither of them knew that Admiral Orcs had grown suspicious of Wu's investigation. Coalition intelligence was already preparing to send a battle fleet to Hoth Prime. Commander Veltar, the reptilian who had led the original betrayal, volunteered to command the mission. He looked forward to finishing what he had started 6 months ago. The hunter was about to become the hunted, but on this frozen world, the apex predator was no longer what it used to be. Battle Group Vanguard emerged from hyperspace like a swarm of angry metal insects. 12 heavy cruisers, 4 battle carriers, and 40 escort vessels spread across the Hoth Prime system in perfect military formation. It was enough firepower to crack a planet in half. Commander Veltar stood on the bridge of his flagship, studying the frozen world below. Somewhere down there was the human ghost that had been haunting coalition shipping lanes. Today, that ghost would be laid to rest, permanently. "Admiral Orcs believes this is some kind of new enemy species," his intelligence officer reported. "But I think we both know what we are really dealing with." "Yes," Veltar hissed through his reptilian teeth. "A human that should have stayed dead. No matter. This time we brought enough force to turn the entire planet into molten slag." What Veltar did not know was that his communications had been intercepted weeks ago. Hidden in her ice caves, Nari had been listening to coalition military traffic through equipment stolen from captured ships. She knew they were coming, she knew their strength, and she knew who was leading them. The same reptilian commander who had betrayed her team was returning to finish the job. Wu sat in his quarters, aboard one of the coalition vessels, sick with guilt and fear. He had provided intelligence to help Nari prepare, but looking at the massive fleet around him, he wondered if he had simply led his former student to her death. A message appeared on his private terminal, transmitted on a frequency that only Earth military used. The words were simple but chilling. "Teacher, watch and learn. The Cold War begins now." That night, the coalition learned why humans had once been feared across the galaxy. It started with the outer patrol ships. Vessels on the edge of the formation simply went dark, one by one. No distress signals, no explosions. They just stopped, responding to communications. When search teams arrived, they found the ships intact but empty, stripped of weapons and supplies. "How is this possible?" Veltar demanded. "We have sensors covering every cubic meter of space around the planet." His sensor officer looked confused and frightened. "Sir, I'm reading multiple contacts, but they keep disappearing. It is like something is moving through our formation using our own ships as cover." Nari had spent months studying coalition ship designs and tactics. She knew their sensor frequencies, their patrol patterns, their communication protocols. Using a captured coalition fighter modified with scavenged stealth technology, she moved through the fleet like a shark among fish. But she was not just stealing supplies. She was sending a message. Inside each captured ship, coalition crews found the same thing carved into the hull walls. Korean words that their translation computers could not fully interpret, but the meaning was clear enough. Earth remembers. Vengeance is cold. As more ships fell victim to the mysterious attacks, Veltar realized he was not dealing with a simple survival situation. This was psychological warfare at its finest. The human was inside his head, making him jump at shadows and question every sensor reading. "Sir, we are receiving a transmission," his communications officer announced. "It is coming from the planet's surface." "Put it through." The voice that filled the bridge was calm, cold, and speaking perfect coalition standard. But there was something in the tone that made even battle-hardened soldiers nervous. "Commander Veltar, you remember me, I hope. Captain Lee Nari of Earth. You buried me on this planet 6 months ago." Veltar's scales darkened with anger and fear. "Impossible. You died in that avalanche. Death is just another kind of cold, Commander. And I have learned to make cold my friend. Tell me, how many ships have you lost so far? 12? 15? I have stopped counting." Around the bridge, officers looked at their sensor screens with growing panic. She was right. 15 ships had gone dark in the past 6 hours. "What do you want, human?" "I want you to know that Earth has not forgotten your betrayal. I want you to understand that some things are harder to kill than you thought, and I want you to deliver a message to your coalition masters." "What message?" "The invasion of Earth is canceled. Any fleet that approaches my home system will face the same fate as your ships today. The galaxy has room for humans and aliens, but only if the aliens remember their place." Veltar slammed his fist on the command console. "You are one human. On one planet, you cannot threaten the entire coalition. Watch me." The transmission ended, but the attacks continued throughout the night. By morning, Veltar had lost a quarter of his fleet. Ships vanished from the formation like they had been swallowed by the void itself. Worse, his remaining crews were becoming paranoid and trigger-happy, firing on their own vessels when sensor ghosts appeared on their screens. Kim Woo received another private message as chaos spread through the fleet. "Teacher, Phase 2 begins now. You might want to find a safe place to hide." Before he could reply, every communication screen in the fleet lit up with the same broadcast. It was a recording of the original betrayal on Hoth Prime, enhanced and cleaned up to show exactly what had happened to the human team. The galaxy watched as coalition forces murdered their allies in cold blood. They saw Kang Dae and Park Soon die fighting impossible odds. They witnessed Lee Nari's last stand before the avalanche buried her. But the most damaging part of the broadcast was what came next. Coalition military communications discussing the planned invasion of Earth. Strategic documents outlining how they would eliminate human military leaders across the galaxy before launching their attack. Evidence of a conspiracy that reached the highest levels of coalition government. The political firestorm began immediately. Species that had trusted the coalition demanded explanations. Worlds that had contributed ships to the invasion fleet recalled their forces. The careful alliance that had been years in the making began cracking like ice under pressure. Admiral Cork sent frantic messages to Veltar demanding an explanation, but the reptilian commander had problems of his own. His fleet was falling apart from the inside as more ships disappeared, and his crews began questioning their orders. That evening, as Veltar tried to reorganize his remaining forces, he received a final transmission from the planet's surface. "Commander, you came here with 47 ships. You now have 23. I could take the rest, but I want you to return to your masters. Tell them what happened here. Tell them that Earth's daughter is watching. Tell them that the cold never forgets, and revenge is a dish best served frozen." The next morning, Battle Group Vanguard limped away from Hoth Prime in defeat. They had been outfought, outmaneuvered, and humiliated by a single human who should have been dead. But Kim Woo did not leave with them. In the confusion of the retreat, he disappeared from his ship. Coalition records would later show that he died in an accident during the evacuation. The truth was different. He had chosen to stay with his former student, helping her prepare for the war that was coming. Because while Veltar had been defeated, the coalition would not give up so easily. Earth needed to be warned, and there was only one person left alive who could deliver that warning. The woman who had become winter itself, forged in betrayal and tempered in ice. The coldest killer in the galaxy was finally ready to come home. 1 year after the betrayal on Hoth Prime, the Coalition invasion fleet finally assembled for their assault on Earth. 300 warships from 12 different species gathered at the edge of the solar system, ready to end humanity's presence in the galaxy forever. Admiral Orcs commanded the massive armada from his flagship, determined to finish what had started with Lee Nari's apparent death. The defeat at Hoth Prime had damaged Coalition unity, but fear of human unpredictability had ultimately brought the Alliance back together. Today we eliminate the human threat once and for all, Orcs announced to his fleet commanders. No prisoners. No mercy. Earth burns today. What the Admiral did not know was that his secret invasion had been expected for months. Earth's defense forces were ready, but they had help from an unexpected source. Commander Sarah Chen of Earth Defense Command studied the approaching fleet from her command bunker deep beneath the Himalayan mountains. The odds were impossible. Earth had maybe 50 combat-worthy ships against Coalition's 300. But they had one advantage the enemy could not count. They had Lee Nari. The woman who had once been Earth's finest soldier sat in the corner of the command center, looking more like a ghost than a human being. Her transformation on Hoth Prime had continued during her year-long journey home. Her skin was pale white, her hair silver like frost. When she moved, it was with the deadly quiet of a predator. But her mind was still sharp as winter steel. Their formation is exactly what we expected, Nari reported, studying the tactical displays. Orcs is using standard Coalition attack patterns. He has not learned anything from our previous encounters. Are you sure your plan will work, Commander? Chen asked quietly. Nari's pale eyes reflected the light like ice. Earth's enemies made one critical mistake. They gave me a year to prepare, and they taught me to hate them more than I hate the cold. Kim Woo, who had helped Nari return to Earth, nodded grimly. The student has become the teacher. What she learned on that frozen planet will save our world. The invasion began at dawn Earth time. Coalition forces poured into the solar system like a metal avalanche, expecting to overwhelm human defenses through sheer numbers. Earth's small fleet rose to meet them, looking impossibly outmatched. But as the fleets closed to combat range, Admiral Orcs began receiving reports that confused him. Sir, our sensor readings are strange. I am detecting far more human ships than intelligence predicted. Impossible. Earth has no hidden fleet. Admiral, we are picking up Coalition signatures mixed in with the human vessels, ships that match our own databases. Orcs felt a chill that had nothing to do with the vacuum of space. Show me those readings. On his display screen, he saw the impossible. Mixed in with Earth's defense fleet were dozens of Coalition vessels, ships that had vanished over the past year during mysterious attacks throughout the galaxy. Ships that Lee Nari had been stealing and collecting. Each captured vessel had been modified with human technology and crewed by Earth's finest pilots. What should have been a hopeless battle for humanity suddenly became something much more even. All ships attack pattern Delta. Nari's voice cut through Coalition communications with cold authority. Show them what happens when you corner Earth's children. The battle that followed would be remembered as the most brutal space engagement in galactic history. Human pilots, flying Coalition ships they had learned to hate, fought with a fury that terrified their enemies. They knew exactly how Coalition vessels operated, where their weak points were, how to exploit their tactical doctrines, but Nari had saved the best surprise for last. As the two fleets tore each other apart in the space around Earth, she launched her personal fighter toward Admiral Orcs's flagship. The small craft was barely visible among the chaos of the battle, just another piece of debris floating through the carnage, until it attached itself to the flagship's hull and began cutting through. Admiral Orcs was directing the battle from his command bridge when the lights went out. Emergency power kicked in seconds later, but it was too late. Something had gotten inside his ship. Security teams to all decks, he ordered. Find the intruder. But his security teams were already dead. Lee Nari moved through the ship's corridors like winter wind, silent and unstoppable. A year of living in impossible cold had changed her into something that barely registered on thermal sensors. Her pale skin blended with the ship's metal walls. Her silver hair caught no light. She was death-walking in human form. It took her 20 minutes to reach the bridge. 20 minutes of systematically eliminating every guard, every crew member, every obstacle between her and her target. When the bridge doors finally opened, Admiral Corks found himself facing the ghost that had haunted his nightmares for a year. "Admiral," Nari said politely, as if they were meeting for tea instead of in the middle of a space battle. "We have unfinished business." Corks drew his sidearm, but his hands were shaking. "You should have stayed dead, human. Death is just another kind of cold, and I have become very comfortable with cold." The fight was brief and utterly one-sided. Admiral Corks was a politician who had never faced a real warrior in personal combat. Nari was Earth's deadliest soldier, enhanced by alien nanobots and hardened by a year of impossible survival. When it was over, she took control of the flagship's communication system and broadcast to the entire Coalition fleet. "This is Captain Nari of Earth. Your admiral is dead. Your invasion has failed. Any ship that does not withdraw immediately will be destroyed. You came here to eliminate humanity. Instead, you have learned why the galaxy once feared us. Around Earth's orbit, the Coalition fleet was falling apart. Without their commander and faced with impossible human resistance, ship after ship began withdrawing from the battle. Some tried to continue fighting, but they were systematically hunted down by human pilots who knew their vessels better than they did. By sunset Earth time, the invasion was over. The Coalition had lost nearly half their fleet, while Earth's casualties were surprisingly light. The captured Coalition vessels had made the difference, turning a hopeless fight into a crushing victory. But the real victory was not military. It was psychological. Word of Earth's triumph spread across the galaxy like wildfire. The Coalition, which had seemed unstoppable just hours before, had been broken by a single human woman who had refused to stay dead. Species that had feared human unpredictability now remembered why that fear was justified. Nari stood on the observation deck of Admiral Corks's former flagship, looking down at the blue and green world she had fought so hard to protect. Her reflection in the window showed what she had become. No longer quite human, but something new. Something forged in betrayal and shaped by ice. Kim Woo joined her at the window. "What now, student?" "Now we make sure this never happens again," she replied. "The galaxy needs to remember that Earth's children do not forget their enemies. We do not forgive betrayal, and we are much harder to kill than anyone imagines." Commander Chen's voice came over the communication system. "Captain, we are receiving surrender requests from Coalition worlds across the galaxy. They want to negotiate peace terms." Nari smiled, and her pale eyes reflected the light like winter stars. "Tell them I will consider their requests, but the negotiations will be held on Hoth Prime. I want them to see where this all began. I want them to understand what happens when you bury Earth's children in the cold. And if they refuse, then they will learn that some things are harder to kill than others. And when they survive, they come back angry." The woman who had died in betrayal and been reborn in ice had become something the galaxy had never seen before. Earth's coldest killer had saved her world. But more than that, she had reminded the universe why humanity deserved its place among the stars. Some species conquered through strength, others ruled through intelligence. But humans, when pushed to their limits, became something that would haunt their enemies' nightmares forever. The cold never forgets, and neither does Earth.